U.S. Election 2024 Live, polls tight as Trump, Harris in Michigan, Wisconsin. With 4 days to go until the U.S. presidential election, Republican Donald Trump and Democrat Kamala Harris are campaigning in Midwestern swing states. Trump has held a brief private meeting with members of the Arab American community in the Detroit suburb of Dearborn, before holding a rally in Warren, Michigan. He will later appear in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Earlier on Friday, Republican presidential nominee Trump announced that, if elected, former independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would have a big role in health care in his government. Kennedy has been widely denounced for espousing conspiracy theories about vaccines and other aspects of healthcare, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. But he has become a prominent part of Trump's campaign, and continued his streak of rally appearances with remarks on Friday in Milwaukee. "We are destroying these children," Kennedy said, returning to oft-expressed concerns about chronic illness among children. "Why do all of our kids have eczema and asthma and allergies? This is not normal. I know what a normal child looks like. And our kids today are injured, and they're damaged because we're being poisoned. And that comes from corruption." Kennedy suspended his own presidential bid on August 23 of this year. But as he spoke on Friday, he described his decision in divine terms. "For 19 years, I have, every morning without one exception, I have said a prayer to God to put me in a position where I could end the chronic disease epidemic," Kennedy said. "And on August 23 of this year, God sent me Donald J. Trump." Rapper Cardi G has taken the stage, touting Harris's economic policies and saying she was not planning to vote before Harris entered the race. "I wasn't gonna vote this year. I wasn't. But Kamala Harris joining the race, she changed my mind completely. I did not have faith in any candidate until she joined the race," she said. She's gonna pass a ban on price gouging on groceries, referring to a proposal by Harris to crack down on companies that charge exorbitant prices for essential goods. Georgia election official Gabriel Sterling has said in a social media site that the race would be close and either candidate could win. Sterling asked supporters of both Harris and Trump to prepare for the possibility their candidate could lose, a possible reference to previous efforts by Trump and his supporters to claim victory in the state despite losing there in 2020. "As we get closer to Election Day, I have a message for supporters of both candidates. Especially their most vociferous supporters. Your candidate may lose," Sterling said in a social media post. "This is a close race. You need to emotionally and mentally prepare for that possible outcome." While rappers like Glorilla and Flo Milli amped up the crowds at the Harris rally, across town in Milwaukee, Trump's team brought out Republican politicians to rally his supporters. First up was Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma. He started by greeting the veterans in the audience. "I want to talk about another fighter. We have this fighting for this country, right? You and I are here because we're fed up," Mullin said. "We need a fighter that knows how to win a fight." Then came Senator Eric Schmidt of Missouri, who borrowed a line out of the Harris playbook. "Look at all the joy in here. There's a lot of joy in here. I don't see it on the other side," he said, surveying the crowd. Joy has been one of Harris's campaign themes, following a surge of Democratic enthusiasm after she entered the race in July. Schmidt also joked about Harris's appeals to middle-ground voters, with a reference to yesterday's Halloween holiday. "We heard on the plane ride in that Kamala last night dressed up as a moderate. It did not go well. Y'all make sure you go out and vote. Y'all ready to keep the party going?" Memphis rapper Gloria Hallelujah Woods, better known as Glorilla, is the latest artist to take the stage and perform a musical number to entertain the crowd at Harris's Milwaukee rally. Like fellow performer Flo Milli earlier in the evening, Glorilla and her backup dancers also performed in a camouflage ensemble, a likely sartorial reference to the camouflage-patterned Harris Walz baseball cap that went viral on social media. "Make sure you go out and vote," Glorilla said at the end of her set, which included songs like Hollin'. Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin is facing a close re-election battle against Republican rival Eric Hovde, a race with high stakes for determining which party will control the U.S. Senate. Wisconsin will decide who our next president is, and which party controls the U.S. Senate. No pressure, Baldwin joked at a rally for Harris in Milwaukee. A recent Marist poll found Baldwin leading Hovde by a margin of about 3 points. Shout out to Kamala Harris. Things are kicking up at the Harris rally in Milwaukee, as camouflage-clad singer Flo Milli performs her hit Never Lose Me before the packed crowd at the Expo Center. She is among a list of celebrities turning up for Harris on Friday night. The rapper Glorilla, the Motown group The Isley Brothers, and singer Cardi B are all scheduled to appear in the lead-up to Harris's speech. The star of the comedy series Key and Peele and the musical TV show Schmigadoon, actor Keegan-Michael Key joined Harris's star-studded lineup in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, on Friday. This election is truly the most important one that we have ever had. Ever, he said, adding that he was usually uncomfortable with public speaking, but he felt compelled to act. Key accused Republican candidate Trump of making a career out of pitting people against each other and indicated Harris was the only sensible way forward. We've all heard, in one form or another, that this election is about a choice, Key said. Choice is the word a lot of people use, which I think actually is a little confusing. It's confusing to me because, if we take a look at what our choices really are, then yes, by definition, there's a choice. But that's like saying there's a choice on how to travel from Canada to the United States. You can either drive a car or take a plane to get over the border. Or you can take a barrel over Niagara Falls. It's Friday night in the US, and in the political sphere, all eyes are pointed towards one Midwestern city, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That will be the site of tonight's dueling presidential campaign rallies, one from the Democratic candidate Harris and the other from her Republican counterpart, Trump. With a population of more than 500,000 people, the city could well hold the key to claiming the swing state of Wisconsin. The state was won by a mere 20,600 votes in 2020. But Trump stirred up controversy in the city earlier this year when media reports indicated he called Milwaukee horrible in a closed-door meeting with fellow Republican politicians. His team later walked back his comments, saying Trump was referring to crime in the area. But the Democrats seized on the situation. I happen to love Milwaukee, President Biden posted on social media in the aftermath. In 2020, she was an ardent supporter of then-Democratic candidate Joe Biden, endorsing him and even interviewing him for Elle magazine. But come 2024, the rapper and singer Cardi B had changed her tune. In a May edition of Rolling Stone, she spoke to her disillusionment with the Democratic establishment, expressing frustration at the lack of action taken on questions of the economy. I feel like people got betrayed, she told the magazine, indicating she planned no presidential endorsements in the upcoming race. She also raised questions about the backlash to artists who expressed concern about the humanitarian toll of Israel's war in Gaza. There's countries where kids are getting killed every single day, but because the U.S. won't benefit from that country, they won't help. I don't like that America has this superhero cape on. But on Friday night, Cardi B will be back on the campaign trail, this time supporting Biden's successor on the Democratic ticket, Vice President Harris. She is set to appear with fellow rapper Glorilla at Harris's rally in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. A Pennsylvania judge has ordered the Erie County Board of Elections to send out ballots to around 17,000 voters who requested mail-in ballots but have not received them. The ruling comes after the state's Democratic Party filed a lawsuit on Wednesday, alleging that the county's failure to send out between 10,000 and 20,000 requested ballots caused substantial delays and hardships in casting ballots, potentially violating the rights of voters. I think that everybody worked together and did the best we could to enable people to vote despite the failings of the county's contractor, which was just horrendous, said Timothy McNair, an attorney for the state's Democratic Party, according to local news outlet WJET-TV. A short while ago, Harris, the Democratic candidate for the presidency, completed her second stop of the day in Wisconsin, in the city of Little Chute. Joy has been a prominent theme of her presidential bid, and her crowd has embraced the aesthetic, wearing friendship bracelets similar to what the campaign sells on its website. Other supporters at the Little Chute rally wore T-shirts with Harris's face printed on it, styled like the Shepard Fairey portrait of fellow Democrat Barack Obama. Other shirts spelled her first name, Kamala, using the outline of cats, a reference to Republican running mate J.D. Vance's dismissive remarks about childless cat ladies. The news agency CNN has reported that the Harris campaign is highlighting different aspects of her position on Israel in separate ads targeting undecided Jewish and Arab voters. Any ad in Michigan, where Arab voters have expressed anger over the Biden-Harris administration's provision of billions of dollars in military support for Israel's war in Gaza, says Harris, will not be silent about the suffering of the Palestinians. Harris has refused demands to cut off military aid to Israel, despite a litany of violations of international law by the U.S. ally. Another ad targeting potential Jewish voters in Pennsylvania promises that Harris will stand up for Israel's right to defend itself and defend our forces and our interests against Iran and Iran-backed terrorists. That video ad cuts out a section of her speech where Harris calls the suffering in Gaza heartbreaking. It has been a whirlwind dash through the swing state of Michigan on Friday for Democratic running mate Tim Walz, who started his day in Detroit and later made a stop in Flint. Now, Walz has ended his third appearance for the day in Traverse City. And urgency was the message of his speech. "We're under 100 hours until polls close," he told the Traverse City crowd, looking at his watch. He emphasized that Michigan voters were key to a Democratic victory on the November 5 election day, calling on locals to defend democracy and do their civic duty. 1 or 2 votes in the state of Michigan in each precinct could be the difference between President Harris or the nightmare we saw on the other side, Walz said. "There'll be a point where you're going to be older. You're gonna be in that rocking chair on the board. You're gonna be rocking. And a little one's going to come up to you, and they're going to be studying in school. And they're going to say, 'Where were you and what would you do in 2024 to protect the democracy and keep the American experiment alive?'" He ended his speech with a call to action: "Michigan, win this for America." Trump will continue to hammer his closing message at a scheduled rally in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, according to Al Jazeera correspondent Alan Fisher. Reporting from the outskirts of a venue in the swing state, Fisher said Trump will push a message of "Kamala broke it, I can fix it." He'll talk about ending wars. He'll talk about lowering inflation. He'll talk about gas prices, all the things that appeal to voters, said Fisher. Surrounded by teachers at his rally in Traverse City, Michigan, Democratic running mate Tim Walz attempted to school Trump on a subject the Republican has leaned on: the economy. "The guy is nearly 80 years old," Walz quipped. "And he says he went to the Wharton School at some point in time. Somebody should have taught him how tariffs work." Trump made tariffs on foreign imports a central part of his platform during his presidency, from 2017 to 2021, and he has announced plans to double down on them again. But experts warn that the cost of tariffs could be shifted from industries to American consumers. He says China will pay these tariffs. And your answer is, "Oh, just like Mexico paid for the wall?" Walz said to laughter from the crowd. Walz, however, acknowledged that the economy is a key issue for undecided voters leaning towards Trump. "There's a few folks out there who still haven't made up their mind," Walz said. "And you hear this one a lot. I hear it from relatives, friends, family, whoever it might be. Well, I don't like Donald Trump. I don't like his personality." And all of us are saying, "Really?" But then, they do something that we need to set the record straight on. They say, "Yeah, but his economy was good." To reply, Walz repeated an emerging Democratic line of attack: he took Barack Obama's economy. Addressing first-time voters during her rally, Harris spoke to the experiences of young people, and the immediacy of issues like climate change in their lives. "The promise of America is all around us. It's in the young leaders who are voting for the very first time," she said to Cheers. "You know what I love about this generation? You all are rightly impatient for change. You are determined to live free from gun violence, to take on the climate crisis. You guys are going to shape the world you inherit. And for this generation, none of these issues is theoretical." With only days until Election Day, every twitch in the presidential polls results in a tsunami of news articles. Who's up? Who's down? And how are the candidates still tied? Democratic running mate Tim Walz took the stage in Traverse City, Michigan, on Friday with some empathy for all the avid poll watchers in the U.S. right now. "Look, I get it. Folks are stressed about what's there. They know what's coming, should that guy get another chance," Walz said of the Republican presidential candidate, Trump. "They're worried about it. They get on the polar coaster. Oh, it's great. Oh, it's not. "Oh, it's great. Based on the polls," he quipped, "we've won and lost 50 times." Harris has said that a Trump second term would mean yet more harsh restrictions on abortion, blaming the former president for the overturn of Roe v. Wade by the U.S. Supreme Court. The 1973 case had previously guaranteed the right to abortion. During his term in office, Trump appointed 3 conservative justices to the Supreme Court, and in June 2022, the court nixed the protections Roe had once granted. That paved the way for a blitz of new restrictions and outright bans in Republican-led states. We remember how we got here. Donald Trump, when he was president, hand-selected 3 members of the U.S. Supreme Court, with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. They did as he intended. Over 20 states have a Trump abortion ban, Harris said. Imagine, in America today, 1 in 3 women lives in a state with a Trump abortion ban, many with no exceptions even for rape and incest, which is immoral. Pete Buttigieg, a former presidential contender in 2020 and current Secretary of Transportation, was long known as the youthful mayor of South Bend, Indiana. But in July 2022, he made a big change, and moved away from his hometown to Traverse City, Michigan, the site of today's Tim Walz rally. Traverse City has been a frequent stop in the presidential campaigns this year. Trump himself held a rally just a week ago, on October 25. The city's metropolitan area boasts about 150,000 people in the pivotal swing state of Michigan. Buttigieg, warming up the crowd for Walz, described himself as a proud Michigander on Friday. "I didn't move here because it happened to be the center of the political universe," he joked. "I moved here because I fell for this certain son of Traverse City," referring to his husband, Chasen. Buttigieg encouraged Democratic voters in the area to turn out for the Democrats. "It's down to the hours, an election that could decide the whole future of our country and an election that could be decided by just a few votes per precinct right here in the state of Michigan." Mike Johnson, the leader of the Republican majority in the U.S. House of Representatives, has said that he would likely repeal the CHIPS and Science Act, which has invested heavily in domestic tech manufacturing. The law symbolizes a keystone in outgoing President Joe Biden's economic legacy, but it has come under fire from Trump, who indicated tariffs on foreign industry would be better suited to bolster the domestic economy. When asked on Friday if he would repeal the law, Johnson said he expects that Republicans probably will, but we're focused on winning the election first. The Harris campaign has jumped on the comment, stating that repealing the law would put manufacturing jobs at risk. Wow! Republicans are promising to repeal the CHIPS Act and gut tens of thousands of jobs from swing states, Amar Moussa, Harris's director of rapid response, said in a social media post. Harris has said that Trump's economic agenda would include rolling back healthcare access ensured by the Affordable Care Act, ACA, popularly known as Obamacare. Trump has denied claims that he would repeal the ACA but has pledged to do so in the past. As we have discussed, he still wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which would throw millions of people, millions of Americans, off of their health insurance and take us back to the time when insurance companies could deny people with pre-existing conditions, Harris said at a rally in Wisconsin, prompting chants of, "We're not going back." The Supreme Court has dismissed an emergency appeal by Republicans to block the counting of provisional ballots cast in Pennsylvania by voters who make mistakes on their mail-in ballots. The justices left in place a state Supreme Court ruling that elections officials in the battleground state must count provisional ballots cast by voters whose mail-in ballots were rejected. As of yesterday, about 9,000 ballots out of more than 1.6 million returned have arrived at elections offices around Pennsylvania lacking a secrecy envelope, a signature, or a date, according to state records. Let's bring you up to speed with the latest developments in the race, just 4 days before Election Day. Harris and Trump have both touched on economic themes while campaigning in key swing states. Trump argued that inflation has been eating everybody alive, while Harris said her rival is all talk, no walk, when it comes to support for labor unions. A U.S. judge rejected a bid by Elon Musk to move a case alleging that he is using massive cash giveaways to influence voter behavior to a federal court. Trump made a brief campaign stop in Dearborn, Michigan, home to a large Arab American community that has expressed anger over the Biden administration's continuous support for Israel during its war on Gaza. The Republican candidate has repeated his promise to punish people who burn U.S. flags, which the Supreme Court has previously ruled is a form of free speech under U.S. law. We will teach our children to love our country, to honor our history, and to always respect our great American flag. And I'm going to put a bill in, you burn the American flag, you get 1 year in jail, he said to cheers from the Warren audience. It just happened a few weeks ago in Washington. They're burning American flags all over the place, he said, without offering details. We have some more comments from Harris's speech at an International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers local in the southern Wisconsin city of Janesville. Nobody understands better than a union member that, as Americans, we all rise or fall together, Harris said, promising to eliminate unnecessary degree requirements for federal jobs and push private sector employers to do the same. When unions are strong, America is strong, she said, calling Trump an existential threat to America's labor movement. Referring to her rival's time in office, Harris said, America lost nearly 200,000 manufacturing jobs when he was president, including thousands of jobs here in Wisconsin, making Donald Trump one of the biggest losers of manufacturing jobs in America's history. Chris Mays says her office was investigating whether Trump violated state law for suggesting yesterday Liz Cheney should face gunfire in combat. I have already asked my criminal division chief to start looking at that statement, analyzing it for whether it qualifies as a death threat under Arizona's laws, Mays, a Democrat, told 12 News. Mays said it was not yet clear whether the Republican presidential candidate's comment during an event with conservative commentator Tucker Carlson amounted to protected free speech or a criminal threat. That's the question, whether it did cross the line. It's deeply troubling, Mays said. It is the kind of thing that riles people up, and that makes our situation in Arizona and other states more dangerous. As we previously reported, Trump on Thursday called the former Republican lawmaker a radical war hawk. Let's put her with a rifle standing there, with 9 barrels shooting at her, okay? Let's see how she feels about it, you know, when the guns are trained on her face, he said. A poll of Puerto Rican voters in Florida by the University of Central Florida has found overwhelming support for Harris over Trump. The survey found the Democrat had a commanding lead of 85% over the Republicans' 8%. It came after a comedian at a Trump rally in New York on Sunday made a series of crude and racist jokes, including calling Puerto Rico, a U.S. territory where residents do not enjoy the full benefits of citizenship, a floating island of garbage. In 2020, exit polls showed Biden beating Trump among Puerto Ricans in Florida by 69% to 31%. Trump has again attacked Liz Cheney as a warmonger for her long record of support for an aggressive and interventionist foreign policy, saying that her father Dick Cheney, a key architect of the U.S. war in Iraq, was responsible for widespread destruction in the Middle East. While Trump has sought to win over Arab American voters angry with the Biden administration over its unconditional support for Israel's brutal war on Gaza, he has been a strong supporter of Israel and oversaw a drastic increase in civilian deaths from U.S. air raids in parts of the region while in office. Kamala's campaigning with warmongers like Liz Cheney. How do you think that is? They want to get the Arab American vote, they want to get the Muslim votes, so she picks Liz Cheney, whose father virtually destroyed the Middle East, Trump said. Trump says if he returns to the White House, he will put a 100% tariff on Stellantis if the automaker tries moving jobs from the U.S. to neighboring Mexico. His comments at the Warren rally came after another speaker said the company was sending vehicles made by Chrysler, which is owned by Stellantis, to Mexico. Tell Stellantis that if they plan on moving, we're going to charge them a 100% tariff on every car, and they won't move, Trump said. The Republican says he could have been enjoying himself on the beach instead of running for president, but that he remains committed to seeking office again. Trump has made similar comments in the past, suggesting that he gave up a glamorous life for the higher calling of running the country. Somebody said to me, "Are you glad you did it? Ran for office?" I said, "Absolutely. But I could have been on the best beaches in the world." "I own the best beaches in the world," he said, adding that his beautiful white skin would be nice and tan. "But you know what? If I had the choice, I wouldn't even think about it. I would do exactly what I've done, because we're going to make America great again," he added. Moving away from the campaign trail shortly, we've spoken to student activist Farah Hellal about the youth vote and how it factors into this election campaign. We witnessed the Trump presidency during high school, at least for my generation, and college as well, for a part of it. So I think that what we saw from him is not something that makes us want to see it again. It was a difficult time for a lot of marginalized communities in the United States, and his presidency is not necessarily something that is appealing to a lot of our demographics. However, at the same time, when we look at the other side of the aisle, due to the two-party system, we would typically look at what is the lesser of two evils and we would say, okay, it seems as though we must vote for a Democrat. But this time around, the lesser of two evils is not enough of an argument when we are actively witnessing a genocide in Gaza. In Warren, the Republican candidate has repeated his claim that tariffs can be used to fix a number of economic problems facing the U.S., a theme he has frequently hammered in recent weeks. Economists believe that radically expanding the use of tariffs would primarily harm U.S. consumers. Look, the most beautiful word in the dictionary to me is tariff. I think it's the most beautiful word. It's gonna make our country rich, and these stupid people, look, politicians, there's only two reasons why they wouldn't want to use tariffs: they're stupid, or they're corrupt, he told the crowd. There's no third reason. They're either stupid, or they're corrupt. As the United States presidential election approaches on November 5th, polls show Harris and Trump locked in a tight, too-close-to-call race. But while the U.S. election is about who the American people want to see leading them, the country's outsized influence means the contest is being watched closely in capitals around the world. So who would various world leaders want to see in the White House? Master Lock, a Wisconsin company that manufactured padlocks for decades, closed down its Milwaukee factory earlier this year. Former employee Chauncey Adams says he has been struggling to make ends meet ever since, even though he now works 2 jobs. No one is paying us that money, Adams told Al Jazeera. I'm starting all the way over at 44 years old, he said. Adams said he was not going to vote on Election Day. Despite efforts by both Trump and Harris to win the votes of manufacturing workers, Adams said he doesn't believe in such promises anymore. Attacking the Biden administration's economic record, Trump has promised to bring inflation down and relieve families suffering economically. You had no problem. You were making money, you were putting money away, you had money left over, you could go out shopping. Your prices weren't quadrupled for a sausage, for a piece of lettuce, for an apple, he claimed of his time in office. Now, the prices have gone so high. The inflation is eating everybody alive, he said. The Democratic presidential candidate has slammed Trump for what she called his all talk, no walk support for the working class and organized labor, calling him a union buster who was no friend to union members. He's got a lot of talk, but if you pay attention to what he's actually done, you'll see who he really is, Harris told an audience at a union hall in Janesville, Wisconsin, calling Trump an existential threat to America's labor movement. Billionaire Elon Musk's bid to move a lawsuit seeking to halt the Trump supporters' $1 million giveaways to federal court has failed. The Tesla and SpaceX CEO and ex-owner has continued with the sweepstakes while the lawsuit filed by Philadelphia's chief prosecutor is pending, giving $1 million to a Michigan man today and promising to continue the daily awards until Election Day. District Attorney Larry Krasner, a Democrat, sued Musk and his pro-Trump Political Action Committee, America PAC, this week, calling the giveaways to registered voters in election battleground states an illegal lottery scheme. Musk's lawyers filed a motion seeking to move the case to federal court, but District Court Judge Gerald Papert batted it back to state court, saying that was the proper jurisdiction. The Justice Department warned Musk and his America PAC last week that the sweepstakes may violate federal law, which prohibits paying people to register to vote. Trump has called labor leader Sean Fain, president of the United Auto Workers Union and an outspoken critic of the Republican candidate, a stupid fool at his Warren rally. The American worker is absolutely drowning, you're drowning. You're not going to have your job very soon, if Harris wins, he said. That stupid fool at United Auto Workers, that poor, stupid fool that runs the union. The Republican candidate has once again attacked the press at his rally in Warren,